Hi, welcome. My name is James Yotis. I'm the high school sports editor here at the Journal, joined by Ken Sickinger, staffer here and former prep editor. We're going to be with you every week for the rest of the high school football season, just kind of breaking down some of our picks that will appear in the Journal every week. So we're going to pick a few key games each week to talk about. So we're into week 3 of the prep football season. We've got some good ones on tap this week. The best game by far of the week, Ken, is Goddard, the number 1 ranked team in 4A, coming up here to play Rio Rancho, who is one of the best teams in 5A. That game is Friday night at 7 o'clock. Goddard had its season opener last week against Aztec, beat them 63-0. Rio Rancho's off to a 2-0 start. They've beaten teams, beaten Gadsden and Highland 54-0 and 54-2. A lot of good athletes in this game. Rio Rancho's got a sophomore quarterback named Easton Bruer, who's off to a great start. Rio Rancho has some of the best receivers in 5A, kids like Austin Patterson, Nathan Hahola, Tristan Foley. They've got a great running back in Ulysses Astorga, and a very good defense as well, a very underrated defense. They're going against a Goddard team that was the state runner-up in 4A last year. They lost a 1-point game to Aztec, and Goddard really killed it in their first game. They ran for almost 300 yards on the ground against Aztec. They had a couple of defensive scores. The ground game was led by Cody French and Dean McDaniel, who combined for about 200 yards. So we're going to see, I'm sure, a lot of fireworks in this game. I'm leaning toward Rio Rancho this week. They've never beaten Goddard in football. I think this is going to be their week. What's your thoughts?
Well, you know, I tend to go with the Southern schools when in doubt, and in this one there's a lot of doubt. I think both teams are really good. I think you're going to, like you said, see a lot of points scored, and I think from my opinion, I'll take Goddard in the ground game in the end.
Yeah, and this is a big game for Rio Rancho. If they want to prove they're ready to take that next step, it's teams like Goddard that they need to beat, and of course they play Las Cruces High School next week, which we'll talk about next week. Another big game on Friday here in Albuquerque at Wilson Stadium. Volcano Vista is playing Sandhya. That's a 7 o'clock start up at Wilson. Sandhya's 2-0. They beat West Mesa in week 1, and they beat West Mesa in week 2, and also, beat West Mesa in week 1, beat Siebel in week 2. Volcano Vista had a 1-point loss to Manzano in their first game. They're coming off a bye week. Interesting game here. Couple of decent defenses on tap here. Sandhya's had some good defensive showings these first 2 weeks. Some of their offensive guys been a little inconsistent coming off their game against Siebel last week. They've got a quarterback named Craig Kaufman. Good kid, 6'3" kid. He's got a good arm, but he's been a little inconsistent. They've got a couple of good running backs in Aaron Smith, Daniel Cones. They've got a really good receiver named Brendan Barker. This team can score, and they can move the ball. Volcano Vista showed a lot of offensive spark in their first game against Manzano 2 weeks ago. They lost 35-34. They've got a kid named Joe Circe Ortega. Really solid kid, one of the quickest kids in 5A. He's a sprinter during the track season, very fast kid. He's used on special teams, on defense, at wide receiver. He's a kid that Sandhya's going to have to watch out for. And Volcano's quarterback, Reed Hendricks, is a kid who's still improving. He's still got some room to improve, but he's getting there. He's a kid, I think, that could make the difference in this game, whether Volcano wins or loses. I'm taking Volcano in a slight upset here, I think, coming off the bye week. I like their chances this week.
Yeah, I really thought about this one for a while. I think it's a coin flip game. I like Sandhya a little bit better just because of history, and Volcano Vista, they showed that they can score this year, which has been their bugaboo the last couple of years, but I'm going to take Sandhya in this one.
Right, I agree, and that's why I'm picking Volcano. I think they showed some offensive spark in week 1, something they didn't show all of last year, that this team really has struggled to score points at the 5A level. So what I saw in week 1 encouraged me enough to take them this week. So we'll see. I think that'll be an interesting game. Hopefully I will get that one right. Another game on Friday night. Centennial is up here to play Atrisco Heritage. This is not a big game per se, except that Centennial is coming back to town with Aaron Ocampo, the former Manzano coach, who's now coaching at Centennial, a new 4A school in Las Cruces. Centennial's off to a 1-1 start. They've split a couple of games against a couple of JV teams from El Paso. They're up here to play Atrisco, who is 2-0, coming off that big win against El Dorado in the first week, 15-14. And a big win at Gallup last week, 47-0. They have a chance to go 3-0 this week, and honestly, they have a chance maybe even to go 4-0 with Valencia next week. But just talking about this week's game, I like Atrisco's chances. They've got a good quarterback, a senior kid named Nate Good. They've got several good tailbacks, the best of them being Jeremy Sanchez. And their defense is actually playing excellent football right now. They'll get better tests as we go forward, but I'm liking the way Atrisco looks so far.
I agree with you. I think that's kind of game that Aaron Ocampo has notoriously won in the past when everyone overlooks him, but at the same time, I think Atrisco is just going to be the better team.
Yeah, with a first-year program, it's hard to see them beating Atrisco at this point. But Atrisco could evolve into a really nice story. Matter of fact, they could be 4-0 when they go play Rio Rancho in the fifth week of the season. That's something just to watch out for. Moving on to Saturday, we've got two Southern teams coming in for two consecutive visits over the next 2 weeks. Las Cruces, which is generally regarded as the top-ranked team in 5A, is here to play Cibola on Saturday afternoon. That game's at Milne at 1 o'clock. Las Cruces is 1-0. They beat El Paso Chapin in the first week. They had a game against El Dorado canceled in the second quarter last week due to weather. Many of the coaches I've spoken to around 5A just think this is the best team physically, athletically. They just think this group is really solid and it's going to be tough to beat. They're very big, very experienced on both offensive and defensive lines. Their best kid is a kid named Cameron Dixon, about 6'3", 220, just a beast, great kid. Super athletic, probably more effective at tight end than defensive end, but you're going to have to account for him all game if you're Cibola. The Cougars have actually played really well the first 2 weeks. I was not expecting as much from them, but they've shown a lot in their first two games. They blew a 21-point lead against Valley in the first week. They were up in the fourth quarter against Sandhya last week. They lost both these games. They've actually played pretty well. They've got a young quarterback named Derek Martinez, who's been really a playmaker for them. They've got a receiver named Elijah Winfield, who I really like. That kid is one of the more underrated kids, I think, in 5A at this point. And the running game is okay. It's not great, but it's good enough to keep defenses honest. But I think the big thing in this game is can Cibola's offensive line deal with Las Cruces' defense, which is big and physical and mean.
Oddly enough, these are two of the teams that I have seen. I haven't seen them play, but I live right by Cibola, so I go by there all the time, and I've been in Las Cruces enough, and I've driven by Las Cruces High School, and you're right, that's a big team.
Yeah, we both like Las Cruces in this game for obvious reasons, but I think it'll be another test for Cibola to see how well they show against a really good team. And Cruces, who knows, they have to play at Rio Rancho next week. Are they thinking ahead? That could be a number 1 versus number 2 type situation. This might be a trap game for them where they get caught looking ahead. So Cibola might be able to sneak in and give them a little bit of a scare, but I think we both like Cruces, to win this game. The last game we're going to talk about is also on Saturday afternoon. It's at Wilson Stadium at 2 o'clock on Saturday. Clovis is up here to play Manzano. Clovis, like Las Cruces, is going to be here on back-to-back weeks. Clovis is up here to play Cleveland next week. Clovis and Manzano had 2 great games last year, one in the regular season, one in the playoffs. Manzano won both these games, and they both went right down to the wire. This should be a fun game. This should be an awfully fun game. Clovis has a tailback named Kamal Cass, who's, I think, one of the 3 best tailbacks in 5A, no question, along with maybe Ramel Jordan from Cleveland and maybe Ulysses Astorga from Rio Rancho. He's that good. He gets out to the perimeter, forget about it. Manzano's not going to be able to deal with him. Clovis has a tight end named Marshall Wynn, really big kid, good athletic kid. This team can score some points. They've scored 67 and 55 in their first 2 games, not against the toughest competition. Manzano, meanwhile, they're 2-0. They had that 1-point win over Volcano in week 1, and they beat up on West Mesa pretty good in week 2. They've got a new quarterback named Angel Gonzalez, new tailback named Corey Morrow. Both have actually been pretty good so far, and they've got a receiver named Skylar Walker, who's tremendous, and a kid that Clovis is going to have to mark closely on Saturday because that kid is capable of catching a dozen balls a game if you're not careful. So I like Manzano in this game. For me, this is a coin flip game. You were talking about Volcano and Sandhya. For me, this is a coin flip type of game. Eric Roanhouse, I'm sure his group, they really want to beat Manzano. They left Albuquerque twice last year with really sour tastes in their mouth. They want to beat Manzano badly, probably as much as anybody on their schedule outside of maybe Carlsbad. So I'm taking Manzano, but I think it'll be close.
Well, I took the other side of that coin in the coin flip on this one, and really for the reasons you're saying. I think the Clovis is going to be very motivated, and the Cass kid is going to be able to keep them on the field enough that they'll find a way to win.
Yeah, and we should mention too, Eric Roanhouse recently became the all-time wins leader among coaches. He got his 311th win in the first week against Capital, so he's sitting at 312 now as Clovis comes up here to play Manzano on Saturday afternoon. Anyway, that wraps it up for us this week. I'm James Jodas. This is Ken Sickinger. We're going to be with you every week and kind of go through this. Forgive us. We're not TV personalities. We hope you enjoyed our presentation. If you want to see our full list of picks, read the Journal every Thursday morning. We'll have a lot more picks beyond the games that we talk about here every week. So be sure to read that every Thursday morning. Until next week, we'll see you.